In today's current music landscape, especially in rock and alternative, one-hit wonders don't really exist anymore. I'm talking about the bands that made a huge song that everyone knew and then faded away from the spotlight. Back in the 90s, there were tons of them. This video is going to take a look back at some one-hit wonders from the 90s in rock and alternative. When you look back at the biggest hit songs in 90s rock, especially in the alternative scene, you will find a ton of young bands and artists getting 15 minutes of fame and having their song played on the radio, helping them make a career out of one album. God bless that time before streaming, and when bands didn't have to tour endlessly to pay bills because everyone just listens to music on Spotify now. This is just a fun look back at 90s music and reliving some of the big songs from one-hit wonders. This is not a top 10, no ranking, just a list of big music in alternative and rock. Please subscribe to get notified on other upcoming lists, and let me know if there's another big one-hit wonder from back then that I didn't discuss here. No further explanation needed, you know how these videos work, let's get to it. Starting off with one of the bigger one-hit wonders of any genre to come from the 90s, Harvey Danger made a song that would spread infectiously to every music fan back in 1997 with their big hit, Flagpole Sitta. Yeah, that's actually the name of the song, most people don't know that. Off of their debut album, Where Have All the Merrymakers Gone, the Seattle-based band had a song that became a sensation almost instantly. Flagpole said it became a staple of MTV, FM radio, and just about any public venue that played live music, and it still gets occasional airtime today. The song charted well in the US, but it was the commercial success in multiple outlets in film and television that helped make this somewhat pop-punk style song a favorite of many. While Harvey Danger's debut album wouldn't sell as well as many other one-hit wonders at the time, it's Flagpole Sitta that made everyone remember the band's name decades after the song dominated rock, alternative, and even top 40 stations. Harvey Danger would try to make other singles work and stayed together for 15 years total before ending things, but nothing really ever came close to the lightning in a bottle they had with Flagpole Sitta. There was so much energy from a plucky band, not trying to do anything fancy or special with the song, but have a blast and make an entire chorus hook that defined the entire band's career. Are they great vocals? No. Is it the best instrument work? Not really. Is it fun to hear? Absolutely. Harvey Danger proved you can make a career off of one big hit, and after 3 albums and 15 years together, the group rode out on good terms with each other. And still in present day, most of us can't get that chorus out of our heads. In 1995, you saw many one-hit wonders pop up, and one of the ones I remember that truly defined the alt-rock scene with just one hit song was Dishwalla. Their big song, Counting Blue Cars, off of the California band's debut album, Pet Your Friends, which is a bad album title for a bad band name, to be honest, had something special with this song. Counting Blue Cars actually had some meaning behind it, unlike many nonsense alternative songs too, and that it's about a man coming to terms with his spirituality while talking to a child and trying to explain what he thinks in simple terms to the kid. The song charted very high through the US and Canada, and it really was that one shot of success Dishwalla would be known for, despite several albums and being active on and off for over 20 years after the song made it huge. That big chorus about thoughts of God are what people really remember, but this is also a great example of that one band you can't remember the name of with that one song you don't know the name of in the 90s. I like Counting Blue Cars. It's peaceful but has a good flow in the verses and really sets off well with that hook in the opening line of the chorus. Strong finish as well, good guitar work in the rhythm and melody. I get why it was a hit, but it's impressive how fast the band was forgotten even by one-hit wonder standards. The song even had an acoustic version that got decent airplay the following year, but other than that, no one really talks about Dishwalla anymore. Possibly because of the name, Dishwalla. Counting Blue Cars made a young band chart high off of a debut album, and for a brief moment in time, they had reached their high points, and they did it with a legitimate song that had some meaning behind it. I'll take that over nonsensical butt rock any day. I feel like a band with a name like Butthole Surfers could have only made it big in the mid-90s, and even then, I still kind of think it's a miracle. After many years as a band together, it was on Butthole Surfers' 7th full album, Electric Larryland, that the band changed their wild, chaotic, avant-garde style that was also experimental and psychedelic to do a song called Pepper. And that was the song that gained them a world of attention. What's crazy about Butthole Surfers is that 1, all the other big bands of the early 90s like Nirvana loved Butthole Surfers, and 2, most of Butthole Surfers' music sounded nothing like Pepper. This song was all the band needed to become a mainstream success, as it charted so high that it made Billboard's top 40. A band named Butthole Surfers made it to the top 40, leading to performing Late Show with David Letterman and getting gold certification for the album. The song goes from hazy spoken word to singing and is quite simply a lot of nonsense in many ways, but also slightly descriptive of that time period of youth, being too dumb to know better and living dangerous. But it's truly mostly nonsense. Even the title Pepper has nothing to do with the rest of the song. This sure is a song. Honestly, Pepper really stood out in the 90s for many reasons because of the format and what it tried to accomplish or not accomplish, but I'm not convinced Butthole Surfers even wanted this type of success. One thing's for sure, people dug it back in the 90s. Does the song reflect what the band is about and even sound similar to their other music? Not at all. The band's cult following grew even bigger though because of it, and music fans everywhere now know the name Butthole Surfers. I don't know how else to end a segment talking about Pepper by Butthole Surfers. So, yeah. How about them 90s, huh?
They were drinking from a fountain that was pouring like an avalanche coming down the mountain.
Going from buttholes to Christian music, I am terrible at transitions. Looking back at the mid-90s though, and the ever-evolving state of rock and alternative, the fact that a truly Christian band became mainstream with their debut album is definitely a big deal. The big song Flood from Jars of Clay really flooded the airwaves at the end of 95 and early 96. Not only did Flood chart well on Billboard's rock charts, but it was also huge on the Christian charts, and rarely did the two genres have songs that were featured popularly at the same time. This led to the band's debut album going platinum, and the self-titled release stayed on the Billboard Top 200 albums for a solid year. Jars of Clay would have other hits in the Christian world for sure, but nothing came close to the success they had with Flood, and to be honest, they earned a huge fan base for life because of this track and the debut album. That fan base still supports Jars of Clay today in the Christian genre, as they are still together. Flood is fine for what it does, and it was something different in 95, a band with a string section and much harder acoustics in the mid-90s being played alongside much heavier acts. That's a big deal, especially as it's from a band who got their name from a Bible verse. This song really proved you could have strong religious beliefs, but still fit in that 90s scene with your style of music while not going over the top and singing about Jesus every lyric. That's a problem many Christian bands have, but Jars of Clay did it fine. While many Jars of Clay songs doubled down on spirituality, Flood was one of the examples of proving they could make music not revolving around their religious beliefs. In turn, they stood out big because of it. In my eyes, this totally counts as a song that fits in the world of alternative and pop rock when you consider what Meredith Brooks accomplished in 1997 with just one song. This woman made sure everyone knew she was unashamed on her second album, Blurring the Edges, when her song Bitch dominated charts and became a permanent part of pop culture. Brooks was in her late 30s before making it big. Her debut album coming out several years before and not making waves, it was this song that catapulted her into the spotlight and got her to #1 on several charts as well as earning awards everywhere. No matter what type of music fan you were back in the late 90s, you knew Meredith Brooks because of this song. Her label at the time, Capitol, didn't even want to release the track as a single due to the controversial title, but Bitch would go gold in several countries and earn her platinum status in the United States. Brooks would release several albums after through 2005 and was a guitarist of choice at live events for other big names, but nothing would come close to the success she had through this one song. It goes to show you can still make a big name for yourself later in your career, and it's not always the young, brand new artist that gets all the attention. Meredith Brooks took over the spotlight for a good amount of time for making an empowering anthem that still is remembered today. And she made it her career last by being a guitarist for other big acts, including Divas Las Vegas, where she played guitar for Celine Dion and Anastasia while they destroyed AC/DC. It truly was one of the worst cover songs ever, but the guitar work was not the problem.
I'm sure she got paid well.
Meredith Brooks went on to help produce other artists' albums and even had her music used as TV show theme songs. She was undeniably and unapologetically herself in the 90s, and she should be proud. Rather, she shouldn't want it any other way. Going to another solo artist as a one-hit wonder, Duncan Sheik became a big name in '96 and owned the alternative, adult contemporary, and overall Billboard charts with Barely Breathing. Off of his self-titled debut album, Duncan Sheik made a big move with the song and became a commercial success, because of which it set up a long career for the man. While Sheik never had any big hits that would come from the 7 full albums that were released throughout the years after his self-title, Barely Breathing made him a reliable name in the industry. The song charted high in the United States and Canada and helped lead to Sheik's self-titled gold certification. What's interesting is that Sheik had a significantly successful career years after the hit, working for Broadway, writing and composing original scores and winning several Tony Awards and even a Grammy over 10 years after Barely Breathing took over the airwaves. Proof that not all one-hit wonders fade into obscurity, and other outlets in music can prove fruitful.
I still like Barely Breathing. There's something about his voice which isn't over the top or too quiet on top of the guitar tracks. It's that 90s adult contemporary alternative style that still holds up because it's both simple but resonates and doesn't feel like it's cashing in on any music fads back then. It's a smooth, steady flow with a good sound and just enough inflection from Sheik in his delivery. Back in the 90s and even today, it's still the perfect soundtrack style song for media. That's hard to do with a one-hit wonder song over 20 years old.
Barely Breathing was a one-hit wonder song that helped launch a career in music through wildly different avenues than constantly touring and performing live. It's nice to see things work out for people who adapt into different avenues. Jumping a few years earlier into the 90s, we come into the gray area, bridging that gap between grunge and alternative with Toadies. In 1994, Toadies' debut album Rubberneck held their claim to fame in the band's most well-known song, Possum Kingdom, which is a perfect example of that song you've definitely heard before but don't know the actual name of. This really is peak 90s alternative music, even if a bit heavier than some of the alternative stuff at the time. Possum Kingdom would lead to the band's debut album going platinum, along with Possum Kingdom charting high on Billboard's rock charts. Toadies' career would not reach that height afterwards, and it's not all their fault. Their planned follow-up album Feeler was recorded in 1997, and in 1998, their label at the time, Interscope, didn't like what the band recorded and straight up canceled their release, delaying the band's next output until 2001. By then, nu metal took over and Toadies were a thing of the past, even though they put out material well into the 2010s.
It's the chorus and the stretched guitar chords that make this song Possum Kingdom iconic of the early and mid 90s. And even though the Toadies' career was significantly kneecapped by labels in the industry, they still did extremely well with their debut thanks to this song in particular. It's well over 5 minutes of nostalgia in a song like this, and oddly enough, it's connected to another track on the album Rubberneck, but it still took off big on rock radio and gave a name to Toadies. Some of these 90s bands, oh my gosh, Toadies, Butthole Surfers, man, anything goes for 90s bands.
Possum Kingdom was that big spark for Toadies that helped the band stand out in a sea of alternative and grunge back in '94. Weird band name, weird song name, solid song in general. By all logic, Sex and Candy should not have been a hit, but it absolutely was, and it was a radio staple of alternative and rock scenes for a year. Off of the Minnesotans' 1997 self-titled debut album, everyone that heard this song once had the chorus embedded in their long-term memory for life. In the mid-90s, the alternative scene was similar to the Wild West in the sense that there was no hard rules or structure or style. Be as wild as you want, and in the case of Marcy Playground, be as I don't even know, droning and uninterested as you want? Honestly, the vocals sound like singer John Wozniak is about to fall asleep at points, and people in radio refuse to stop playing it. Sex and Candy charted insanely high all over the world, including the top 10 of Billboard's Hot 100. This led to the band's debut album being certified platinum. This is also an ideal example of one-hit wonders because after this, the band was barely spoken of with new music or songs, which is crazy to think because Marcy Playground released many albums up until the mid-2000s.
Sex and Candy, is ridiculous. There's really no other way to say it. From a music standpoint, it's blank and void of anything. It sounds like a joke song you'd hear at a coffee shop in a movie making a parody of that type of music. And it was a big part of 90s alternative culture. Huge. You remember the name Marcy Playground because of how big this song was. In many ways, it took off because there was nothing like it. For better or worse. Ridiculous lyrics, no real instrument work worth talking about, massive success.
I don't know many people who say their favorite song from the 90s was Sex and Candy. In fact, I don't know one. But it didn't matter because the success of this track was massive and built a career for a band who surely was living the dream.
Yeah, mama, this must be my dream.
Going back to 1992, the psychedelic style of grunge and alternative was a fairly untapped market, and Blind Melon went all in on blending different styles into their own. While the band would have occasional singles get brief attention, Blind Melon is truly defined by their debut self-titled album and the song No Rain, which was massively successful for a unique group. Many people question if Blind Melon is truly a one-hit wonder, but when you compare the singles released after and the work Shannon Hoon did with others, and consider how Blind Melon really is remembered mostly for this enormous hit, it's hard to argue. It looks like the band is seen as a one-hit wonder by a general consensus as well. No Rain was a big deal in the early 90s, introduced many rock and grunge fans to something new, and showed the band had many great songs on their debut, which led to the album reaching number 3 on the Billboard Top 200 albums, along with No Rain charting high on several Billboard lists. Massive success very quickly for a band that was doing something wildly different at the time. No Rain is instantly recognizable and unique due to Hoon's voice, and the band does deserve to be known for more than one song, as they had a couple of fledgling songs to get a touch of radio play, but nothing really came like the hit No Rain, and unfortunately, people mostly talk about Hoon's death when bringing up the band and the big song. That's it. That's a shame because this song is fun and a serious nostalgia trip, and the self-titled album definitely has solid tracks on it worth hearing if all you know from Blind Melon is No Rain. Blind Melon had several attempts to reform after many searches for a replacement singer, and as of 2020, they are still a group trying to create new music. Nothing pretty plain about that. Before we get to this last entry, if you've been liking this video so far, please hit the like button below. It helps a ton to get this bumped up in the algorithm and pushed to non-subscribers on YouTube. Thank you. Alright, probably one of the most well-known 90s one-hit wonders ever, and not even in rock and alternative, just in all music. Of all the bands who deserve to be known for so much more than just one song on this list, I think it's Chumbawumba. Everyone remembers the Whiskey Drink and Vodka Drink song off their 8th studio album, Tubthumper. That's right, they had that many albums before becoming a big hit. Chumbawumba formed in 1982 and didn't make it big until 1997. Tubthumping went number 1 on many Billboard charts and around the world for that matter, gaining platinum status for the band's album of similar title, and so much of their music sounds nothing like Tubthumping, not even close. Chumbawumba is an extremely politically driven band that truly supports anarchy and revolt. The closest lyrics that come to that in Tubthumping are, "You're never gonna keep me down." Side note, many people think I Get Knocked Down is the name of the song. To be fair, it's easier to remember than Tubthumping. Also, to be fair, I think most people only remember the band name because it's pretty dumb. Let's be honest, Chumbawumba is almost as stupid sounding as Hoobastank. Chumbawumba would have a couple of decent hits outside of the US, and they constantly changed their sound but never truly got a big hit like this again. Chumbawumba disbanded around 2012, and Tubthumping is still getting played in commercials, on TV, and in movie soundtracks today. Chumbawumba should have been known for so much more than this song. Even on that album, Tubthumper, there is better stuff than Tubthumping, but this is all most people know about the band, and it's a shame. Don't get me wrong, the song's success set the British band up for a long time. But this track does not define Chumbawumba. The song isn't bad, it's catchy, the delivery from both vocalists works, it's fun, it's kind of a pump-up song and invigorating in a way, but yeah, Chumbawumba deserves so much more credit than to be known for a Whiskey Drink and Vodka Drink. Tubthumping was a silly alternative pop rock sing-along song for the pubs about the working class and being stuck in a political system, which no one understood. I still not really sure I understand, to be honest. The 90s were wild, and this song is just more proof of it. And that was a look at 10 one-hit wonders in 90s rock. Know of any other one-hit wonders from the 90s or the 2000s? Leave a comment and let everyone know. Big thanks to my patrons and a special thanks to Brandon Barenfeld, Chris Doman, McKenna White, and Dom Smith. You can have a say in upcoming videos and see videos early by supporting Rocked on Patreon. Please click on the link in the video description for more info. Please subscribe to stay notified on upcoming videos. You can check out my concert photography on Instagram, and you can keep up to date with Rocked on Facebook and Twitter.